Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another Bitcoin video. The bearish argument is falling apart. Now, I've been bullish on Bitcoin since around 16,000 USD, and that is down back here in this range pre-January. During December, I was bullish on Bitcoin. I'm bullish on Bitcoin mainly, there's multiple reasons for it, but mainly due to the fact that we have the 4-year cycle theory, the strongest Bitcoin trend, in Bitcoin's price history. Of course, that's been going on for in excess of 10 years now, in excess of a decade. It predicted the top in 2021 during all the stuff that was going on, and it predicted the bottom here in 2022, or at least we think so far. And I was willing to stick by that, and I stuck by it, and I analyzed the trend perfectly, and I made this chart, and I was probably one of the biggest believers in the 4-year cycle theory in cryptocurrency YouTube, and it played out. And at this point in time, we haven't quite doubled, but we've almost doubled from the 15K bottom. So it's played out pretty well so far. Now, my reason, and I'll get into the topic of the video in a second regarding the bearish argument, but my reason for believing so strongly in the 4-year cycle theory doesn't stem from the fact that I think it's just excellent and amazing. It stems from the fact that fundamental investing principles dictate that if we have a trend that has been correct for 10 years, right, you're probably going to want to consider it. And that's what I've been doing. So I've had my invalidation points for the trend, okay? I'm not waiting for new lows. If Bitcoin does in fact go down to new lows, I won't be selling down here at 10K. I will know, when we drop below 19K, I will know a lot sooner than people think. But at this point in time, it's been nothing but valid, and I've stuck by it the entire way. And so far, it's been, as I said, nothing but valid. So what is the bearish argument? Because obviously there has been a bear case to be made. Now, you have the bullish argument for your cycle theory. And you have the bearish argument, which is generally speaking, what people are making is that they're saying, oh, traditional markets are going down, therefore Bitcoin has to go down. That's kind of the bearish argument. But a big part of that bearish argument relies on interest rates. Now, as we know, within the last 2 or 3 days, probably 4 days actually, we've seen major developments from an economical standpoint in the United States of America. And those major economical developments have led interest rates to kind of have a dramatic shift, all right? So previously, we had a 0% chance of no more rate hikes, and it was very likely we're going to see 50 more basis points of rate hikes this year. At this point in time, it is likely we only see one more rate hike, and it is likely, hence, that rates actually top in March, okay? It is likely, at this point in time, 79% probability, we see the top of rates in March, right? We flip over to May here, we can see that again, it's very likely at this point in time, it's the most likely scenario, we see the top of rates in March. Maybe if the economic situation shifts, we see the top of rates in May. Okay, so March, it could be topped out, potentially May, but at this point in time, the most likely scenario is 25 more basis points of hike. So what does this mean in relation to Bitcoin? What does it mean in relation to the bearish argument? Well, the bearish argument, and we've got some on-chain charts to look at in a second, but the bearish argument, generally speaking, dictates, and what I see as the strongest bearish argument dictates that interest rates, when they top, Bitcoin will bottom. That's the argument. When Bitcoin bottoms, interest rates will have topped, right? Interest rates topping will lead Bitcoin to bottom. That is one of the strongest bearish arguments we've seen. And the reason why it's a strong bearish argument is because if we look at what happened in the last cycle, we saw Bitcoin react very heavily to the movements of interest rates. For example, Bitcoin did in fact bottom out on the week that interest rates top. Interest rates are in the orange here, Bitcoin's in the white. So we saw Bitcoin bottom out on the week interest rates topped. We saw Bitcoin see a local top after a massive rally, over 200% rally, after interest rates started going down, and we saw Bitcoin bottom in the COVID drop as interest rates bottom. So we saw 3 major decisions, right, on Bitcoin: the bottom for the macro scale, the top for a massive local move, and the bottom for a black swan crash. All were dictated, or at least maybe dictated, maybe it was coincidence, but generally speaking, they were dictated by what happened with interest rates. So the big kind of, discussion bears have been having is that, well, if Bitcoin bottomed out, for example, at the same time as interest rates topped out in the last cycle, it's going to do it again this cycle. Now, here's where the argument falls apart. Interest rates could be topping out in 6 days. That's where the argument falls apart. And we're at 24K, and at this point in time, it doesn't seem likely to be dropped down to 15K within the next 6 days. Okay, so as you can see, the argument just becomes invalid just from that point. Now, you could make the argument that, well, okay, it is a chance, there's a possibility that rates actually top out in May rather than March. And if you're making that case, you would be saying that between now and May, so the next rate hike will be the 3rd of May under that scenario, you would be saying that between now, which is at 24K, and the 3rd of May, we have to see a drop of around 40 40% on Bitcoin. That's what you're claiming there. If you're that part of the bearish argument there, if you think that interest rate tops dictate Bitcoin bottoms, you are saying that either we're going to bottom out within the next 6 days, in which case we need to drop 40% in 6 days, or you're saying we're going to bottom out within the next month and a half, in which case we need to drop 40% in a month and a half, both of which look incredibly unlikely. So the bearish argument, and one of the strongest bearish arguments you can make, has completely fallen apart right in front of our eyes due to the events of the last few days. So that's pretty interesting there, and it does make me a lot more bullish on Bitcoin. Now, bears will make a second argument, and their second argument is that, okay, forget about rates, the economy's still looking bad, and S&P 500 and NASDAQ, they're all going to go down, okay? And that's going to drag Bitcoin down. That's what they would say, all right? Now, this argument also falls apart to an extent, because what we have here is a chart that shows Bitcoin's correlation to the NASDAQ and also European stock market. We can see that Bitcoin at this point in time is seeing the lowest correlation it has ever seen, right, in its entire price history to the European markets. And it's also seeing, ever since the month of January, ever since the month of October, a consistently decreasing correlation to the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ. Okay, so right now, the correlation for NASDAQ is only around 0.2%, which means 20% correlation. Very weak correlation. If the NASDAQ does drop massively at this correlation, it is not certain by any means, by any stretch of the imagination, that Bitcoin will follow to new lows. So that argument also falls apart. So now you have both of the strongest bearish arguments falling apart right in front of our eyes, and people will still say we're going to 10K because of the economy, all right? And they'll still say we're going to 10K because of a recession. Guess what? The data simply doesn't support it. Right now, the only data that is supported, the only trend that is valid, is the 4-year cycle theory. This is why I've been telling you guys so much for over a year, actually over a year and a half, ever since November 2021 when I predicted the top at 63K. I've been saying the 4-year cycle theory might be invalidated. But regardless of what might happen, it is the strongest possible thing you can put your eggs in. The strongest possible basket you can put your eggs in, right? Trends in TA are more important than speculations based on correlation in the future about the economy and about the NASDAQ, and it's about NASDAQ's relation to Bitcoin. They are very, very rough. I think that any kind of sub 10K claim at this point in time is getting a bit hopium at this point in time. Now, if you asked me 2 months ago, I'd say, okay, there's a case to be made for it. I disagree, but there's a case to be made for it. At this point in time, and especially in the last week, the data has literally completely flipped bullish, and all of the bearish arguments have crumbled right before our eyes. So I think it's incredibly interesting. But without further ado, I've discussed that a lot. We've discussed correlation going down there with Bitcoin and S&P 500, Bitcoin and NASDAQ. We've discussed how the interest rate argument in relation to Bitcoin bottom has fallen apart. Now we can look at the short term. Short term's a bit of same old though. Basically, we're still rejecting from 25.2K. 25.2K is the top of the range we've seen since June. It is the resistance zone we need to be breaking ultimately. We also rejected from this uptrending yellow line, but we've discussed all of this yesterday. Of course, 4-hourly chart looks the same. We've got RSI resistance on 4-hourly chart, RSI resistance on the daily chart as well that you can look at. And on the weekly chart, we're battling with the same resistance zone. It's 25.2K. So all eyes are really going to be on 25.2K from a short and medium term perspective at this point in time. Nothing really to change, nothing really to kind of, talk about there. That's kind of all you need to know about it. 25.2K is the line in the sand for Bitcoin to the upside. I do think it will break to the upside. Whether we correct before we do it is a different story. Obviously, I'm bullish. I've been bullish since 16K, so I think it's going to break. I think it's important to note as well that we've seen during the last week or so, the highest volume on exchanges, options volume on exchanges, throughout the entire price history since 2021. Actually, this chart actually doesn't show. It does actually. So since around February 2021, we saw the highest options volume on exchanges in the last few days here. So massive volume. And as a result of that, we saw the highest 3-day return on Bitcoin since 2019, the highest 3-day return in 4 years. So Bitcoin has skyrocketed. And so if we start correcting a little bit here, don't run for the hills. We've seen, as I said, the largest 3-day return in 4 years. Do you see a 10% correction after that? That's not something you run from, right? That's very bullish price action. And I just wanted to make that video to kind of make those points about the bearish arguments right now. They're falling apart. I would like to hear some counterpoints though, because I know I do have some bearish people who watch the channel. And that's fine. And hey, look, I'm not extremely bullish, right? I just think the bottom is in. I'm not saying Bitcoin's going to enter this parabolic bull market. I don't think that's going to happen. As I said, I believe we're in the 4-year cycle theory. The 4-year cycle theory says that we don't enter a bull run until after the halving, which is after, the middle of next year, late next year. Obviously, the halving's in the middle of next year, but it usually kicks off a few months after that. So I don't think we're going to see this massive, explosive bull run yet. Not at all. I just think that the bottom is in, and perhaps we go upwards, and perhaps by the end of the year, we reach mid 30Ks. That's what I'm thinking. But I'd like to hear some of the bearish cases at this point in time, because the vast majority of bearish arguments I've heard over the last year or so have been reliant on interest rates, and that's fallen apart right in front of our eyes here. I mean, unless we see a 40% drop over the next 6 days, or potentially over the next month and a half, both of which are incredibly unlikely, the bearish argument here has fallen apart. And the one relating to S&P dragging Bitcoin down and NASDAQ dragging Bitcoin down has gotten significantly weaker as the correlation between Bitcoin and stocks has gone down as well. So I'm interested to hear, maybe you guys have some bear cases I'm not aware of in the comment section that I can consider and respond to in future videos. But at this point in time, it's looking mighty good for the macro bulls. So good stuff there. Anyone who's followed kind of my predictions or followed my analysis over the last year and a half has been treated well here, as the 4-year cycle theory at this point in time looks like it's nothing but valid. So that's good to know. So without further ado, guys, a few things to look into before we end the video. So BitGet Exchange is one of them. Best way you can help the channel, best way you can help yourself as a trader. It's got 5 times lower fees than Binance. It's non-KYC. You can sign up from anywhere in the world. If you're from the United States of America, make sure to use a VPN. But other than that, as I said, 5 times lower fees than Binance. And if you sign up using my referral link, you're getting an exclusive 15% discount on trading fees for life. So go ahead and do that if you're interested in using that exchange. And then we've also got the Crypto Academy's Become a Trader course. If you want to learn how to trade, you want to learn how to chart, you want to learn how to analyze, indicators, candlestick patterns, market patterns, this is the place to do it. You can read up about it in the description. I've left the website link, and all the information is on the website. And then finally, guys, if you want to join the VIP group, you want to trade altcoins with me sub-daily on Telegram, it's 100 USD for 3 months of access, which works out to be about $1 a day. And in doing that, you're gaining access to sub-daily trading signals. And we've got the results as well, so you can check out what we've done in the past. And we'll have the Q1 results releasing in about 2 weeks. So go ahead and do that if you're interested in trading altcoins. So without further ado, guys, thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.